Hello, the game has started. It's my opponent to go first. I have a good rack, I've got the blank. I'm close to a bingo. And my opponent has bingoed themselves, but that has provided a lot of floaters. Now, Bouillon is good, through an O, no O provided. I've got Allusion, through the A, through either A of Amoret. That opens up row O, so I'd like to find something better. I've got the un prefix. That doesn't seem particularly promising. I've got IUM ending words, but that's going to open up row A. Do I have anything beginning or ending with T? Can't see anything straight away. If my blank was an S, I could pluralize amorate. Let me run through the alphabet and see if I can see anything. So that's my illusion play through the A. Cullion. Nowhere for that. There may be something here. The E is always useful. Can't see anything. This is the ING ending. Can't see anything there. Mullion. Well, I can play Mullion and Amorate, but that opens up column 15, and I can't see anywhere else to play it. That's a shame. Amorate takes nothing in front. Quion or Quillon, does that play? No, it doesn't. Rullion. Nowhere for that. I don't think Trullion is good. Ah, Illusion through this eye. Well, that either opens up row O or it stops one square short of the double word square, so that's not ideal. "17 minutes on my clock. That's the LY ending. Can't see anything there. So, do I stop one square short of the double letter square, or do I open up row O? Probably not much between these, so I'm going for this one. If my opponent doesn't have an S, he may seek to obstruct that and score not very much. Illusion 64. I don't draw an S myself. I've got a non-bingo-y rack, but I've got good scoring tiles and a couple of vowels. And the board's quite open. So I've got 4 main scoring tiles, B, F, P and Y. I'd like to play off 3 of them. That may not be possible. My Y can go next to the N of illusion. Wow! Great start for my opponent. There goes the second blank, and he scores 90 points, so he's now 100 points ahead. So how can I respond? Well, Yob is still available. 29 points. But that is keeping F and P. They're non-synergetic. Can I do better? I'm looking down here. I could play forb, which keeps P and Y. But then there are two. That's quite good because it covers this double letter square in the bottom row, and it's providing two hotspots, which is the illusion hook and row O. Just need to be sure that I haven't got a bingo here. I've got the type ending, the 4 beginning, so I don't think so. Let me just see what forb scores. £37 points, which is pretty good, and it's more than Yob would get. PEY is a better rack leave than Yob provided. I'm retaining the E, which is good. The other place for my high-scoring tiles is above or below the A and E of Amorate, but I can't see anything great there. Also, I could put my O next to the Z. But I can't see a way of scoring well there, so I think I'll go with this. Now, I do draw an S, so I can pluralize illusion, but I may not wish to do so. It's not quite as hot as it looks. Good score for my opponent, so I'm still 100 behind. There are some... Oh, I thought I had bagpipes for a moment. I don't. So row O is available. There are also the floaters in illusion for a bingo. Now, Egyptians is good. I think, well, certainly Egyptian is. I think it takes an S. I would need I gap N for that. That's not available. GYP is good. That would leave an excellent rack leave. Can't see anything through the eye. 58 tiles left, 13 minutes on my clock. What about the L? That looks like it goes quite well with my rack. Can't see anything. So, what to do? I can stick an S on the end of illusion. I can put my Y next to the N. So I can play Yap. Now I can play Yap across here. 43 points. I'm retaining the S for sticking on the end of illusion. I'm behind, so I want to keep the S for a bingo. Retaining the G is not ideal. So why don't I just play Yag and keep the P instead? 39 points. Pretty good. That looks bingo-y. If I'd had retained the G instead of the P, I would have on stage. I'm wondering about pantos with an E. Teopans is good. I've got teopans and gins. Now, what about the B? Anything through that? Possibly not. B and P don't go great together. I don't think there are any anagrams of teopans. So I'm dependent on the gin spot remaining available, and it does. Fantastic. I'm 100 behind, so this isn't going to get me out of trouble, but I'm going to close on my opponent. Now, teopans isn't ideal. It's opening up row A. So before I rush into playing it, is there an alternative? What about column 8 through ITA? Looks promising. Can't see anything. What about lapstone? Well, it may not be good. Pleonaste is good. Polentas is good. Lapstone is good. So, lapstone. And this will get doubled. And it's not opening up a triple word square, but it is keeping the board open. I have slight doubts about this, but I'm playing it. That's quite good. Looks close to a bingo through an E. I would have attorney. The E of lapstone not available, or not in the right spot rather. I'm 15 points behind. I've got batty and botty through this B on the bottom row, which will sort the rack out. My Y can still go next to the N of illusion. It can also go underneath the N of lapstone. But is there a bingo on this rack? All I've seen so far is attorney. Is there something through the B? Baryton is good. Only uses 1 T. Now, what can I get with my Y next to the N of illusion? I'd like to play off one of the T's. I think Yont is good. That would leave, or I may be confusing it with Ayont. That's annoying to have doubts about that, because that would leave a pretty decent rack leave. Well, I've got Tony using the same tiles in row E. Just been blocked. My opponent's slowing down, 29 points. Do I play Yont? Well, what about playing Botty? Not a great rack leave, or not as good as Yont. 30 points, which is slightly more than Yont. But I'd much rather have ART than ANR. No blanks to come. I am taking out a good scoring spot for my opponent. I'm not providing anything in return. And I'm providing a pretty useful bingo lane in row N, which is of more use to me than my opponent because I'm behind. I certainly do want to play off the O because there are 4 to come. I've got 10 minutes on my clock. Well, I don't feel that this is optimal, but I think I'm going to go with it. Not good. Through a K, I would have neckwear. I'm 14 points behind, but my opponent's on turn, so I'm not in great shape. I've got the W and C for score. The C is quite bingo-y. Caneware is good. Caneware through an A. No A's available. In fact, very few, if any, single tile floaters are available. The illusion spot's still available with 3 S's to come. Swinger is good, so my opponent may be setting himself up for a row A play if he's got one of those S's, and he may, and if he wasn't, he may have drawn an S. Anyway, I need to concentrate on my own rack. My E could go next to this E, but I can't get it to score twice. And it's my priority to play off the W. Sorry, my W can go next to this E. It's my priority to play off the W because the C is quite bingo and is not a problem. Now, what about playing Wens, which obstructs my opponent if he's got an S? Sorts my rack out. Decent rack leave. But low score. I'm not sure if my high takes an S. But am I missing somewhere better? I don't have to play off the N, so if I could play just WE somewhere for a big score, that might be worth doing. But we across here, only 14 points. So I quite like the score. Well, the greater score by burning the N. Very limited opportunities for playing the W. So I think I will go with this. I've got Cinerea. And that plays column 2, making Ed and AI. Fantastic. And it stays available. I thought my opponent for one moment had blocked it. I just saw this blur in the left-hand side of my vision, but he was just playing his cue off, albeit for 30 points. But Cinerea is available. That doesn't have any anagrams. Very few floaters to consider, so I'm quite fortunate to be able to get this down since it doesn't play in row N, which was my spot for 7-letter plays. This is going to open up a couple of triple word squares, but that's okay. Cinerea 79. Well, I draw a non-bingo-y rack, but it's balanced in terms of vowels and consonants, and I've got the X, which is a good scoring tile. Nowhere amazing for the X, but it's still good to have it on my rack. So I've now got a 30-point lead, but my opponent's on turn, and the remaining tiles very bingo-y, and plenty of bingo lanes on this board. In particular, there are 3 S's out there, and I suspect my opponent has got an S on his rack. Now, what about these 2 triple word squares? Can I score well off either of them? Well, what goes in front of AI? My T does. Well, can't see anything there. Vex and Vexed are both good. So I could play Vexed in row F, but that's going to leave A, B, E, U, which is vowel heavy. A lot of vowels to come. 14 vowels out of 30 tiles, so about half the remaining tiles are vowels. And the illusion spot, the illusion hook remains available with 3 S's out there. I'd quite like to play off a lot of tiles to increase my chances of having an S. Now, 28 points for my opponent, that could have been worse. Only 8 points between us, 7 minutes on my clock, which is not very much. Can I use this C? I can't play down column 1 because no 2-letter words end in C, so it's going to be across row A. I don't have to play my X off. Can't see anything. Twinger, not good, I don't think. Now, Bows is good. B-E-A-U-X. Which plays off a lot of tiles, which is good. But there isn't a great spot for it. I could play Bows and Buy. But then my opponent can score off the X, so that's not... what about playing through here? What about playing through here? An okay rack leave. Still 1V to come. If I draw it, that will be problematic. But 36 points is a good score, and my opponent's going to struggle to score off the X. Great, I don't draw another V. F and V lack synergy, but they are scoring tiles, so I should be able to play off one or both of them. Through an O, I would have Fauvir. I've got a 40-point lead. Remaining tiles still bingo-y, and still 3 S's to come. So despite playing off 4 tiles, I didn't draw an S. My F can go on the end of EF. That would kill the illusion spot. But I can't see a 4-letter play down here. I'm looking around for spots where my F or V can score. I was just looking down column B for a 3-letter play beginning underneath the top square. Something something F. But Neff doesn't work because NI is not good. I could play Neff. I could play Neff in column 3. Just 20 points, not particularly stellar. And not playing off many tiles. My F can go above this Y. So I could play Fave. That's worth thinking about. It does open up row O for a 5-letter play. But if I'm ahead, that's okay, because my opponent may well be looking to bingo. So that opening may be of more use to me than my opponent. It will, however, be opening up a new 7-letter lane in column 12, which my opponent could use. Great. My opponent doesn't bingo. I think Twinger's false. Yes, fantastic. I'm glad I spotted that. Now, I know my opponent's got a G and a U on his rack, and he probably hasn't got a bingo, otherwise he would have bingoed. However, he's got an R as well, so if I played Fave, he can stick the R on the end of that, so I might want to think of something else other than Fave. So I could play Neff down here. Now, what about playing down column 1? I've got an A for going in front of do. Only 5 minutes on my clock. Is there a better spot for Fave? Fave would be nice. It would be nice. Maybe I should try that, or play it rather, not try it. Except, what if my opponent's got a bingo which doesn't go at the moment, but does go? Well, let me see the score. 16 tiles left. 5 minutes on my clock. 26 points, which is decent. Rack lead decent. I'm going with this. And I still don't draw an S, and I don't have a bingo, and I don't have any scoring tiles, so that has miserably failed. So 12 tiles left. I guess I could play noted. Having said the remaining tiles are bingo-y, suddenly they're looking a lot less bingo-y, and I know that my opponent's got a G and a U. What he doesn't have is any E's. So plenty of bingos in the remaining tiles, but they're not particularly bingo-y. 23 points for my opponent. So my opponent is now 40-odd points behind. And I can't score. But in playing Trugo, he hasn't scored very much, and he's killed off column 12, and he hasn't provided himself with any decent floaters because there are no N's left, so the G can't be used for an ing word. Words ending O and U aren't very common. Row M isn't available because nothing goes in front of V. Bows takes nothing after it, so there are still bingo lanes on this board, especially illusions. Maybe I should do something about that. Yeeg is good, I think. 4 minutes on my clock, 7 tiles left. But if I play down here, more than 2 tiles, I'm providing floaters. Well, I could play Ed. There aren't any words beginning SD. Or I could play through EF. 3 minutes on my clock. I don't want to play a T there because of ST words. Ed, only 9. And the D could be the beginning of a bingo. Now, what I'm struggling with here is time. So I can't spend a lot of time here. Maybe my opponent doesn't have a bingo beginning with S. These are non-bingo-y tiles. Maybe I should just seek to blast through and score. But if he does have an S bingo, it's going to be a 100-pointer because it's a double-double. So I think I do want to block this. I'm going to go with Ed. Or do I? I'm just thinking if I draw an O, I'll have a pretty crappy rack, and I'm not going to get one of these S's. And Ed takes an S. So I don't like that. What about a play down here? What about Eon? 1 minute on my clock. 13 points, slightly more. No S's. I did draw O's. In fact, I played off an O and picked up 2, so that's a dismal pickup. But the remaining tiles, very unbingo-y. There's only 2 I's in terms of vowels. Eon has provided no vowels, really. This O not particularly accessible. So my opponent would have to be pretty fortunate to bingo now, except Eon does take an S, so that may have been not too smart. But I'm 50 points ahead. Great, my opponent burns an S. There's only 1 tile in the bag. I don't think there are any bingos with this. I've only got 1 minute on my clock. So what about just playing Ode to stop my opponent from scoring well? Or oh dear. I'm going to play this because I'm short on time. And finally, an S. And it's a nice rack. I can see what my opponent's got. I don't think he's got a bingo here. I've got toes on my rack. So I can play toes and picks. My opponent's just gone there. And I've got tones. Great. A minute on my clock. So I'm ahead. I know I can go out. I need to find the best out. I blocked the illusion spot. Swinger is good. Can't see a way of playing out there. Escort is good. That's not quite right. Or the C isn't in the right spot. Escort, S-stock. Coates doesn't get tripled. 39 seconds. Tone's probably not the best. Vids doesn't provide anything. Can't see a way of using the X, so I'm out of time. Tones for 10. Just wait for my opponent to formally end the game. Which he does. And the final score. 406 to my opponent, 450 to me. A winning margin of 44 points. So a pretty exciting game and a narrow victory. Let's see what I missed. It was my opponent to go fast. They had Amaret, and that was a good spot. This was my rack. Linoleum. A4. Okay, well that is opening up row A, but it's a nice word and I didn't spot it. There was nothing great. So anything beginning on row A or H is going to open up a triple word square, and in fact illusion is the only play which doesn't do that. And this is my opponent's rack, and a great spot there of diarized. Alternatives were available. This is my rack. I played Forb. That looks fine, but Belfry, D3. Yeah, Belfry's quite nice, and probably better. It's 1 point less, but OP is a better rack leave. It's more bingo-y than EPY. And it's not opening up row O. My opponent's rack, not nice. Good score, though. This was my rack. I7 Gapey. Ah, yeah, quite nice. And a great rack leave. Yeah, and I played Yap or Yag rather, keeping Pest. Probably not much between Yag and Gapey. The P is quite a nice tile, to keep with EST because it's fairly bingo-y, and if I don't have a bingo, it's a good scoring tile. Horrible rack for my opponent. They play R. Nice rack for me. I had Teopans and Lapstone. Teopans opening the triple. Except it doesn't, because I could have made Gin and Amorate, so Teopans was a better play than Lapstone, just. And Teopans here for 74 is the play that I saw. My opponent's rack, they play My High. Now, I played Botti. I could have played Baryton for 6 more points, keeping T, and possibly that would have been worth doing with 3 S's to come. And for the extra points, and it would avoid the NR slight dyssynergy. But Botti's fine. My opponent's rack, they play Winger. So at this point, when my opponent played Winger and I was worried they had an S, they didn't. Now, my rack. Crew, B2. Okay, coming down here, making Ed. Not great because it's opening up column 1. What did I do? I played Wens for 21. Yeah, I think that's fine. My opponent's rack, horrible. They play QI. And I have a great rack. I have Cinerea and somewhere to play it. So now the balances or the scales have been tipped in my favour. I've got a 30-point lead, and I didn't know it, but my opponent's got a poor rack. The remaining tiles from my perspective were bingo-y, but my opponent's rack wasn't. He plays Q. I play Bows for 36. That looks fine. My opponent's rack. And this is when my opponent phonied, which was good for me. And I played Fave for 26. I had doubts about it for strategic reasons, but in terms of score and rack leave, I think it was best. My opponent plays Trigo, and now I was worried because I didn't have scoring tiles, I didn't have a bingo, and I thought the bag was bingo-y, but looking at the bag now and possibly in game time, it's tilted away from being bingo-y to being non-bingo-y, especially with the lack of ease. So I was in reasonable shape. Ecod, pretty nice, 27 points. And I played Eon here for strategic reasons to obstruct my opponent getting a double-double across here. But I was short on time. I had less than 2 minutes left, so this didn't feel like a great play. Now, my opponent didn't have a bingo. And he played Pick. 1 tile in the bag at this point. I can see that my opponent almost certainly doesn't have a bingo. I'm 40 points ahead. And I'm really looking to sort my rack out. Oh dear. Although it doesn't feature here, it really does that. It stops my opponent pluralizing illusion, and it gives me a good shot at going out in 1. I'm only going to draw 1 tile, so playing Oh dear, retaining EOT, puts me in good shape to do that. My opponent doesn't have a bingo. They play Vids, and finally, I play Tones for 10. There were 2 better spots. A14, Toes, so My High does take an S, and Sex Toe through the X of Bows for 2 more points. But the priority was going out, and Tones achieved that. So a pretty exciting game. Again, getting off to a start in which my opponent rushes off into a lead with 2 early bingos of Amorate and Diorite on the opening 2 moves. But I was able to claw my way back into it and end up the victor. So a pretty satisfying win. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time.